So this is something that's often talked about, and I know that success of mobile campaigns is different depending on what you're trying to achieve. But do you think we have improved the ability to measure success metrics for mobile activity over the last year or two?
I'll ask that. So I guess from a measurement and verification perspective, measurement has been quite difficult and challenging, especially with an in-app environment because apps are generally quite siloed. We've definitely seen increasing measurement across the in-app environment, especially with initiatives like the IAB Open Measurement SDK. This has really helped because previously app owners had to integrate multiple proprietary SDKs, which could cause issues like multiple updates and latency issues. So the Open Measurement SDK essentially creates a sort of standardization for measurement in relation to viewability. And this really helps app owners because they're only integrating that one SDK, and that SDK is, I guess, monitored and updated by a commit working group. So to answer your question, yeah, we've definitely seen increasing measurement capabilities in app, and we expect to see more measurement capabilities in app as the Open Measurement SDK is adopted more in market.
Wonderful, thank you.
And I think from an agency and from a brand perspective, I would agree. We've definitely come a long way in terms of having better verification, better measurements, especially across mobile. We've gotten way better at stitching together the data and looking at a user journey across all of their various devices. Now, maybe a little bit of a cynical point of view from my part, but I actually think the methodologies and what we've used in getting better at stitching together the user journey might be unsustainable with the increase in data governance practices that we see come up, and with things that we've used in the past to measure, such as device ID and on-desktop cookie IDs, and stitching that type of data together might become a lot harder to do in the future with kind of implementation of GDPR and things like that. So I think we've come a long way, but we'll have to become more creative and think of more sustainable ways that we do that with privacy and really taking into account.
That's a great point, thank you. So I'm going to open up this question to each of you. So based on your specialty area, can you tell us what you think the key to a successful mobile campaign is and why? And to put you on the spot, an advertiser that you think implements this very well. So why don't we start with Madhu?
Given sort of the examples you saw earlier, the use cases, mobile as a device, the number of variables are large. So one of the key things to a successful mobile campaign is the ability to experiment a number of things that are possible. So to me, sort of what I've seen working with different, anybody who takes sort of a clean sheet approach and says what's possible, and you start without assuming things from your web experience and such helps a lot. So everything is and anything is possible depending on how you set that. So some of the guys I've seen that do well are some of the fast food campaigns, McDonald's, Domino's, the kinds of things are the things that you can do to integrate with other channels. Getting the tech right is the hard part, but in terms of the creative and the kind of consumer experience that you can observe, measure, influence, opportunities are immense.
So I think when I think of creative, for me, it falls into kind of two buckets. One, the creative, the video, the content that you're putting out has to be disruptive. You have to be able to grab people's attention, especially on a platform like Twitter, people are scrolling through a feed extremely fast, and being able to grab that attention with something that's meaningful makes all the difference in the world. So something that's sharp, snappy, and really speaks to what consumers are interested in, which kind of flips to the other side, which is more about context and where you're talking to people and kind of how you're talking to them. And kind of just understanding, I think, also the consumer journey of what you're trying to sell or the message that you're trying to convey. In terms of brands doing it well, I think on my end, I love kind of what I see Samsung, Australia doing, even Apple, the tech brands just do a great job of really understanding their consumers and also understanding what the consumers are going to be interested in and what they're going to want to share, and kind of when they're going to When they have live events, they're live streaming them on the platform. They're looking into what types of conversations people are leaning into and then responding back with kind of format features and things like that. All the way up to then driving to that pre-order and to that purchase. So kind of looking through that full length of the funnel and connecting with consumers that way.
So it's sort of creating an integrated strategy across everything.
That's it, yeah, and then just to add to that too, the listen and learn model I think is super important. They're doing so well because year over year and kind of launch after launch, they're learning. What are they doing? What are they doing well? What are those passion points that people are actually really leaning into and refining their strategy and retargeting based on that?
Great, thank you. Rashida?
I think for me, coming from a data angle and working closely with brands and being very across the media plans that media agencies churn out, we've kind of seen a little bit of a spectrum of how mobile is approached to media agencies. And if you think back of 2012 and the year of the mobile and the obsession about do I need to create an app and do I need to have a siloed mobile strategy, to almost 5 years later, mobile is just an element of everything else and actually maybe missing out on opportunities. So I think for me, the way I talk to brands about it is always, okay, well, how do we boil it back down to a consumer behavior that we can really tap into? So what's the truth of that consumer experience and where does mobile actually fit into that and what does it unlock from an opportunity perspective? And then what's the brand truth or the product truth that actually will have an opportunity to share with the consumer in a meaningful way?
Great, thank you. Jess?
Yeah, so if we, take a step back to the measurement and verification part, what will make it successful is making sure that you're running across, inventory that can actually be measured first and foremost, so you can start generating those comparable metrics that you can then look at to see how your performance is done on mobile versus the other digital channels. And then making sure that if you are running mobile advertising, you're running it within an environment that is right for your brand. So making sure your ad is actually appearing to a human, not to invalid traffic. Making sure that your ad is within the right contextual environment and making sure that it's actually being seen. So for example, you speak about great creative that cuts through, well the ad needs to be seen for that creative to cut through. So that's what we want to make sure from a measurement and verification perspective to ensure success.
I guess the next question is around, I think we've made good progress in thinking about this channel more agnostically in our planning and strategies. So what do you think marketers still need to think about when it comes to mobile activity to ensure success?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because whenever you're looking at, a channel mix, mobile as a device or as a channel, and then it's about, okay, well, what are people doing on mobile? And the IAB does a really good job at sharing with advertisers, stats around the consumption and where are people spending their times on mobile. And it's very easy to get distracted around, okay, well, what am I doing in native and what am I doing on mobile? Well, actually, let's realign. On mobile, what are the best opportunities for us to capture an audience attention? Native formats are the best options for that. That includes social, that includes search from more of a reactive perspective, but it's about the relationship from a user to a mobile, I believe, is a very personal one. The mobile is almost like your best friend, you carry it in your pockets all the time. And what we decide to consume on mobile is very purposeful, I want to say, because we scroll through things very quickly and only the things that really capture us make us stop. And this is where brands need to be very purposeful in how they leverage that opportunity, because blasting out ads without thinking too much about it and having a little bit of a spray and pray kind of mobile targeting is not going to stop a user. So that native and mobile, mix is where I think we have a really interesting opportunity.
Great, thank you. Lee?
Yeah, if you don't mind me just adding to that a little bit.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. I think from the social side, we're definitely, we're trying to move a lot of brands who come to us, with that full TV spot, with that long form 30-second spot where we're kind of talking at consumers and really trying to work with them to figure out how to talk with consumers instead, moving from that kind of consumption model to more of a communication model. And kind of all of that content that we're putting out on the platform, how do we make it more conversational? How do we create more meaningful engagement and more meaningful interaction in everything we do? And I think on the platform side, across most social platforms, all social platforms really, we're seeing the adoption of more and more kind of products that fit those different ways of engaging consumers. So kind of taking that video, being able to creatively cut it down, kind of using those best practices that we know, but then putting it in a format that we know is going to be contextual for those users when they're seeing.
Yeah, sure. So I think like the first step needs to be to understand the state of the market and the benchmarks, so what Gay went through today, and also the challenges that measurement has across mobile today. So for example, there's still challenges with measuring mobile video, there's still challenges with measuring native placements. And obviously there's initiatives to solve for that, but being aware of those challenges and investing your money in areas where you can measure so that you can attribute properly.
Ultimately, what do you think is the role of mobile as part of the total media strategy, which I think we've sort of covered, but if we can build on that, and to talk about the future state, where do you sort of see the main changes are going to be in the next 3 to 5 years? So I might start with Madhu.
In terms, I think, as 94 hours may come twice, I think, in the next couple of years. So going forward, I think all other channels should be viewed in the context of mobile. If they don't do mobile, what else do they do? And the tech stack to power that is also evolving with all these conversational chats, going back to the notion of communication rather than sort of consumption. So the whole modality of how people consume and engage with content is going to happen on the mobile. So our whole ad formats may be very, very different. So that's just too many things that can come, but underneath the tech stack is evolving. You're sort of behind the creators and so on. People are in it, but to do this at scale, it's going to be very, very different. So exciting times ahead, but I don't know what Apple and Android are going to do, depending on how it evolves. It may be win-win for everybody, or it may sort of split in different ways. We don't know yet, so it should be interesting.
We know mobile consumption will actually continue to increase, and the possibilities in this space are endless. So how do we streamline the investment process and ensure high quality inventory for marketers? So I might start with Lee on that one.
Yeah, I wish everyone asked the creative guy about investment. It's a great question. You know, I think for us as a platform, you know, we've been partnering with premium content providers for a long time to augment live experiences and bring different experiences to consumers as they're scrolling through their feed. You know, it's taken us quite a bit to learn what people are really interested in, what they're consuming, and to work with publishers and premium content providers to kind of bring the best and really augment kind of a television experience or whatever else that those consumers are doing. So, you know, things like the likes of SBS, partnering with SBS to really bring a very different view of the Women's World Cup to our platform when we know people are talking about it and knowing they're engaging and reacting to it is important. So, you know, having that premium list and kind of culling down and refining what we know about our audiences and getting tighter there, I think is really important. And then I think on the other side of that, you know, we do work with a lot of brands who still come to us and cast their net very wide. And you know, particularly on social, a lot of the time it's not necessarily just about reach, but about influence as well. And really finding that audience that shares that core passion that your brand value kind of brings to the table. So, you know, I do think data and insights around users are helping streamline that process quite a bit.